Welcome to the Meaningful Success Podcast, the show where we talk about how to not suck. My name is Josiah Clark, and this is my dad,
Wade Clark.
And together we are
the Meaningful Success Podcast. I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's true.
It's like the Three Amigos or something, but there's only two of us.
Yeah, so, Dad, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
Anything more to that?
No, I am. I'm doing fine.
Is this revenge for when I was a teenager? Fine.
Yes.
Fine. Everything's fine.
No, it was fine. It was a good weekend. Thanksgiving weekend, so extended weekend. So I got to go out and do stuff and eat lots of pie, which I said last time I like.
Let me correct you on that. You said the last two times, not just last time. You said the last two times that pie was your weekly favorite.
So I need to change my weekly favorite.
Had you really written down pie a third time? Okay.
No.
It's like kind of defeats the point of it being a weekly favorite if it's the same thing every single week. So there's something I wanted to talk about today, which came from Jeff Walker's product launch formula.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so if you're not familiar with like I wasn't until very recently, Jeff Walker is this entrepreneur who he specializes in helping people to launch their products, whether those are like courses or
just about anything.
Yeah, just about anything really that you can sell online. He has this program called Product Launch Formula that kind of summarizes his whole methodology. So we kind of stumbled upon his stuff recently through a referral that I got from one of my clients who was really liking his stuff and thought I might find it interesting. Mm-hmm. And so we've been looking into that. You know, we're, like you guys know, we're in the process of launching, you know, this business of the podcast. And even beyond that, we have, you know, the larger parent company that this podcast is under, Dream Parrot LLC, like all the stuff that we're doing together. Mm-hmm. It's all very young and in the process of getting started. And so we signed up on the product launch formula, and so far it's been really good. I've finished there's like 9 or 10 courses that are all contained within it, and I've just finished one of them and started listening to another one. The thing that I wanted to talk about is I am currently listening to like an hour-long video that's in there, and in the video it's Jeff talking with a couple of guys who are like independent authors, publishers, kind of thing. There's something that was mentioned in this hour-long thing. I'm like 45 minutes in so far, which really struck me. This particular video is talking about like self-publishing, particularly from a lens of self-publishing for fiction rather than nonfiction.
Okay.
Because that's what these guys specialized in. And they said something in there, which was, if you're an independent like fiction author and you're self-publishing and whatever, they were like, you don't start making money on a series until the 5th book.
No, that's interesting.
And granted, this is something I'm sure the industry has changed somewhat because they're specializing in publishing online. And from what I can tell contextually, I think this webinar that I'm listening to was recorded back in like 2015.
Okay. So 7 years old.
7 years old. So that could have a big difference on compared to now, what that looks like.
Sure. There are changes that have taken place. I mean, just even from the standpoint of the book that I published in 2012 and republished recently, the resources, the dynamics, all those types of things have changed so dramatically in that time period.
Right. And so the thing is, these guys were talking about this in terms of like, this is just a fact. Like they have published literally scores of books. They have their own publishing company and they've published so many books, and they're like, almost no one, you know, is the person who launches a book and then they're just doing this one series and from, you know,
other than like Harry Potter or something.
Right, unless it's at that giant level of success.
Yeah.
Those are the extreme minority. Most people that doesn't apply to, right? And the thing that really stuck out to me about that was their comment about, you know, you're not going to make money until your 5th book, right? And of course, so this is why I wanted to talk about this. It's not so much this specific tidbit of trivia about self-publishing, but the idea behind it that there are uncomfortable truths, or at least, probabilities in our pursuit of success, which our instinct is to go, oh, well, I would be the exception to that, right? Or to disregard, or to kind of wish you never knew in the first place. Like I find myself, I found myself going, oh man, like, because I've been working on what's going to become my first published novel for about 2 years,
right?
Which is very normal from what I understand for first-time authors. Takes a couple years to do the first one. And so hearing like, oh my God, like if I want to make a living from this kind of stuff, it doesn't usually start making money even until like the 5th book. Oh God, like all these thoughts start coming up. And the thing is, there's 2 ways you can take that. You can either go into denial. Let's assume this is really like as close to a fact as you can get with this kind of thing, right? You can either sort of go into a denial thing, or just kind of, like I said, sort of wish you had never even heard it, because it's kind of a discouraging thing to hear a little bit. Or you can accept it and kind of rise to that and accommodate for it in your expectations and plans and all that. So I wanted to talk to you about this idea of uncomfortable realities or truths or practicalities that we don't really want to think about, but that nevertheless will play a role in our success journey.
Yes.
So do you, like, off the top of your head, are there things like that you think about?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of interesting for our listeners. I had no idea what we were going to talk about today. So this is literally off the cuff. But when you said that, the first thing that came to mind is, I've worked in professional services, B2B sales for most of my career and led growth teams and those types of things. And there are lots of inconvenient truths that are just facts. Maybe I shouldn't say they're facts. I mean, there's always going to be exceptions to the rule that people can point to.
Well, right. But I think the general thing is like, we'll call it a fact for shorthand, but just understanding that we're talking about generalized
broad brush. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, for example, in the industry that I've been in, sales cycles, meaning from the time that you say, hey, this is a company I'd like to do business with, to the time that you maybe get your first project, and it may be a small project with them. Fast would be months. Most of the time it's years. Yeah. Because it's a long-term, it's an industry where relationships are very, very central, and it takes time to build those things. So the reality is it's a long sales cycle. So let's say if you're a business development executive and you're coming into this, even if you are experienced in my industry, which many times people are not experienced in my industry. Right. If you come on board, I don't expect a new business developer to really excel until like 18 months. It's going to be 18 months before they're really hitting their stride, and they won't be hitting their potential for until like year 2, year 3. Yeah. And that's just normal. And that's normal for a variety of reasons. That can be inconvenient. In fact, it's so inconvenient that I can remember a conversation I had with an individual when I was at another company, and I was hiring a sales team. And around the company, I had sales professionals in different markets. And as it always comes about, there's certain markets that tend to be revolving doors, and other ones that you have somebody in there, they're there all the time. Well, this was a revolving door market, and it was largely because a failure to be willing to accept the inconvenient truth. Not the Al Gore book, Inconvenient Truth. just this inconvenient reality that the time frame, because this leader in this office was like, I'll know in 6 months whether this person's going to be successful or not. Yeah. And it was like, there's no one who's...
It's like, no, that might be more like 3 to 5 years.
They could be coming in with deals in hand, and it would take time to produce. I mean, so it's just... There's all kinds of things that come into play in a variety of specters that is the truth. But you're right, because if you recognize that going in, even in the recruiting process, I would tell people, look, I'm not expecting X for X period of time. Now, you may excel above and you may go above and beyond, but we need to set a plan for how are you going to be right where you need to be in, 18 months from now.
Right.
It does change the psyche, because if you come in and without that recognition, I've seen people try to put paint on, dilapidated things, and try to make it spruce up, and it's like you're not giving reality. So if you come in, I've been kind of accused a little bit of selling more the thorns than the rose, because
Sure.
I tell people, hey, here's the reality of what you're going to face.
Yeah.
And if things excel better, great. But otherwise, they're able to set their expectations, which is important, because we can really psych ourselves out.
Yeah. And I think there's also a degree of thinking ourselves unique, and that can either be in a positive or a negative way. Like I mentioned earlier, like we have that tendency as humans to go, oh, well, I would be the exception to this rule, right? Or
just tell me you can't and I'll show you I can, type of deal.
Yeah, exactly. But that also can happen in reverse, where we're not seeing whatever it is that we're wanting to happen. And so we internalize it as there is something wrong with us, or we are doing something wrong.
Right.
And I think having those proper expectations is probably a really important part of protecting against that, I guess.
Well, you can see that even in children. I mean, it can be as simple as a kid starting to play a video game. It's the first time they played it. And they've watched their bigger brother or sister playing it, and they're doing all kinds of great things, and they get in, they think that they can do it, and they start, and they don't hit that level that they expect themselves to be hitting at.
Yeah.
And then they just give up on it because they're so frustrated with themselves, or they think that they're no good. And it's like, it's not realistic to even expect yourself to be performing at this level at this time.
Yeah. So let's apply this more, like, let's take our business we're in right now.
Okay.
The podcast, the books I'm working on, the books you're working on, the
courses,
the everything, right?
Yeah.
What are some of those inconvenient truths that maybe we, in our own success journey, that we can talk about here, or that we haven't thought of?
The inconvenient truth itself is time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you run a business on your own that is your primary source of income. I work in a career that's my primary source of income. Mm-hmm. And those are, from a priority standpoint, that's our first commitments.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can fool ourselves into how much can I get done in X period of time.
Yeah.
And so we end up biting off, even in our expectations, more than is reasonable to chew. And so the inconvenient truth is there are capacities of our time and our attention. And it's not because it's not realistic, because in those grandiose thoughts, you say, oh, well, gee, but I can get this done and this done and this done, because you're thinking solely of the task.
Yeah.
But you're not thinking of, well, I've got my family commitments, and I've got my work commitments, and I've got my exercise commitments, and I want to go out and have fun some. And, occasionally I need to veg out and do nothing.
Yeah.
And so that would be one inconvenient truth that I think that we all have to recognize and plan around.
I think a little more of a granular one is, we've talked about this, I think, in the podcast before, but neither of us are marketing people. Like, we don't know marketing. That is not our expertise, right? Mm-hmm. The reality is that to do the things we want to do, we are going to have to either become that and do the hard work of learning how, or we're going to have to invest resources, time, and money into someone who does know.
Correct.
In order to make these things successful. Because that's the bottom line, is we're just not going to see, obviously we've talked about this before. Meaningful success is more than just numbers, right?
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
more than dollars. It's more than, but when we're talking about just very practical, trying to grow a business, the numbers do matter when you're focused on that part of your goal.
Yes.
And so in order to make that happen with these kind of things we're doing, marketing is just a must.
Well, it is. And marketing is not the only thing that this category would fall, but let's use that as the example. The reality is we have a tendency to confuse capability, or, our learning capability, mm-hmm. with what is best. There's some things that are important for us to develop that skill in and of themselves. So for me, myself, for example, the process of writing books.
Yeah.
I can't hand that off.
Yeah.
I mean, now there's pieces of it. I mean, I can use an editor which I do, and I can use things like that. But the process of writing books in a way that is efficient and effective for me, and everybody writes differently.
Yeah.
But to find and discover and take the time to develop that skill, that's worthy of my investment. However, my degree was in marketing. I mean, here we are talking about that we don't have marketing expertise. My degree was in marketing. Now, granted, it was a long time ago, back when the Stone Ages or whatever.
Back when marketing was done on billboards hung across brontosauruses.
My career has been spent within sales and marketing departments within the industry that I'm in.
Yeah.
Granted, I'm on the sales side more than the marketing side, but I'm in marketing conversations on a daily basis. But I'm in a sphere. I'm in a B2B sphere. I'm in a professional services sphere that is a totally different discipline, tools,
way
approach,
of thinking.
Strategy, thinking. But yet my degree is that. So one logic would be saying, oh, you've got a marketing degree. Oh, you can understand this. You could build that skill set yourself.
Right.
But is that the best use of my time? We just talked about there's multiple truths that intersect here.
Yeah.
And time is a major one. So is it wiser for me to take the time to learn those things or invest in someone who has made that their career path? I think the inconvenient truth is recognizing that sometimes, it can be practical at home too. I mean, you're moving. Do you pack the boxes, load the truck, rent the truck, drive the truck across the country? And, and we've done that too many times because, well, look, I mean, it saves me so much money. And true, it does. However, we have to recognize that there is a value to the time that you're spending, both in exhaustion and mental energies and such. And the investment is necessary.
We're starting to touch more on the personal side of, just non-career-ish, I guess.
Right.
So what would another inconvenient truth, maybe something like, with weight loss as an example, there's an inconvenient truth that
you can't eat pie every day at every meal.
Yes, that's true. And you can't have it be your favorite thing every week. But, that, as humans, weight, what the number on the scale is, it fluctuates just naturally, regardless of health level. Like there's going to be times you're a few pounds heavier, times you're a few pounds lighter, just because that's what your body does. And so having that expectation shields you against the disappointment and self-shame and all that kind of stuff that may come when you see, oh, I'm working so hard, but I've gained 2 or 3 pounds.
Yeah.
And recognizing, hey, okay, there's an inconvenient truth. Do I wish it wasn't the case? Sure. I wish that I would just, do nothing but lose weight when that's what I want to do. Right.
Well, but there's also the recognition, the inconvenient truth that we do not see all factors. Yeah. I was having a conversation with Audrey the other day about that because, I've been working on doing some new workouts and some different ways of eating and that type of thing and tracking things in my app and such. And I gained 2 pounds.
Yeah.
And one of the things that she brought up is she goes, well, that's true, but you're not, the scale doesn't show body composition. It doesn't tell you, oh, gee, your fat went down this much and your muscle went up this much. Right. And so overall weight, but is weight really the right measure? And so sometimes that inconvenient truth is we don't see all the pieces of the puzzle that fit together to tell the story. So
what do you do? I'm coming off of, like I said, listening to this hour-long thing. And so this bombshell has just dropped on me, so to speak. I'm dealing now with a revelation from people who know what they're talking about.
Yes.
That is an uncomfortable truth, an uncomfortable probability that you're not going to really start seeing any money on a series, with the assumption that series is actually selling, by the way, until like the 5th installment. Right.
Right.
And here I am, I'm like 90% of the way done toward publishing my first book. So what do you do with the discouragement, all the stuff that comes up emotionally, because it can feel like not like what's the point then, but almost it just sort of shifts everything to such a degree where it's like, oh God, like, my first book is like close to 200,000 words. And it's like, oh, so in 4 times the work I've just done, I have to do all,
Well, I think there's a few things. One is we have to recognize that what they're talking about is achieving a certain level of performance that they've deemed as successful.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that there's been no results. It doesn't mean like they've put out book 1, 0 sales, book 2, 0 sales, book 3, 0 sales.
And then book 5 is 1 million sales or something.
That's not what happened. What happened is that one thing is that they probably have in their mind what is that level where they're talking about.
Yeah, what the threshold is.
That threshold for that they're wanting to see. So we have to recognize the progress that we gain on each installment. And that's really critical, and appreciate those. Another thing is we have to recognize that we can sometimes be blocks in ourselves, because this may be a personality trait, but there, particularly on creative work.
Yeah.
Perfectionism is your enemy, because it doesn't mean that you don't want to put out a good quality product. That's not what I'm saying.
Sure.
But there are times that we can so pick things apart and rewrite and re-edit and redo this and rethink and reapproach that we don't get one product out and then another product out. I can think of a few examples of that. And one would be, I remember hearing, I've watched a lot of things with songwriters, and they're like, people say that they're a songwriter, and you ask them how many songs they've written. They said, well, I've written about 5 or 8. And they're like, you're not a songwriter.
Right.
A songwriter is writing songs every day. So if you've been a songwriter for, how long have you been a songwriter? Oh, about 3 or 4 years. Well, then you should probably have 1,000 songs out there.
Yeah.
Or hundreds of songs, not 6 or a dozen.
Yeah.
And what happens is people get so hung up on that one that they're not producing. And some of the most successful businesses that I've been a part of or that I've been affiliated with have been companies that realize, certain projects and certain things that we're doing, we need to get to that 80, 90% range of quality and get it out and move forward.
Yeah.
Because that last 10% can take us as long as that first 90%.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we slow our progress because we get so hung up on those things. So that's 2 things that I think. One is recognizing the progress, but 2 is allowing yourself to progress by actually putting things into the marketplace.
Yeah. Well, this is something that I know I'm going to want to talk about more in the future, especially as we continue going through these product launch formula courses and things like that and getting more information. The things that we don't think about when we're thinking about success, the realities that we have to come to terms with, or we're going to be disappointed in one way or another. And
in some cases, people get so disappointed that they give up on it.
Yeah.
And we want to encourage you not to do that. We want to, these are bumps in the road.
Yeah.
They're not brick walls that you can't go through.
Yeah. So what are you guys who are listening, what are your inconvenient truths that you have had to face in your success journey, whether that's in a personal success journey or your career or whatever that may look like? All of it is your success journey to meaningful success. If you want to let us know about that, you can either shoot us an email at contact@dreamparrot.com. You can also leave us a digital voicemail at speakpipe.com/MSP and potentially be featured in a future episode with your recording. Yeah, that'd be great. But yeah, let us know, what are your inconvenient truths of your success journey? What are the things that, those bombshells that go off and you're like, oh God, really? Like, is that really true? Oh no. Let us know, and we'd love to hear from you. But for the moment, Father.
Yes, Josiah.
What is your weekly favorite this week? That is not pie.
Oh, it's the weekly favorite.
Well, speaking of inconvenient truths, it's going to lead into my weekly favorite. But the inconvenient truth is we gave up, cable TV a long time ago. We used Netflix and all those kind of things. And the inconvenient truth is I was used to watching the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, but the good one is only on cable TV.
Right.
You can get it on like YouTube and all these other places, but it's like somebody's cousin Chuck has put a camera on their kid's shoulder and they're filming the parade from the sidelines.
They don't have any sort of official stream of that?
Well, they do. I mean, I watched a few streams, but literally it was like I mean, you're not seeing any of the performances. You're not seeing anything. You're just seeing floats drive by and people are yelling.
I'm surprised they don't have like, I don't know, like almost a pay-per-view style thing of like, hey, $5 and
well, they may, but I've looked for it and I haven't found it. So
that's so strange.
Anyways, but the reason is it leads to my weekly favorite, which is the kickoff of Christmas, because I did watch a version of the parade and got to watch my first Christmas movie for the season, which was Miracle on 34th Street.
Yeah.
And we started Christmas shopping this weekend. So that's my weekly favorite. I love Christmas time of year.
Oh, great. What'd you get me?
Oh, great. You're so excited.
Great.
Great.
Yeah, great. My weekly favorite, I'm gonna take a leaf out of your book, and it is a sweet treat that
Pie.
No. So if you know us personally, you'll be aware of this, but my dad makes chocolate chip cookies that are amazing. And he has made a batch and hopefully many more batches.
They're in the freezer.
You're going to make more tonight, right?
Well, there's a bunch in the freezer.
But you're going to make more tonight, right?
He means pop them in the oven. Okay.
That means text mom to start preheating the oven. No,
I will
no,
do
not
that as we
literally.
speak.
But his cookies are amazing, and you know, we used to have them like all the time, but you know, for the sake of our health, we don't do that anymore. And so when we have those cookies, when he makes his cookies, it's a rare and wonderful occasion. So he has made cookies, and they're great, and it's been really nice to be able to eat them. And that's my weekly favorite. So
my chocolate chip cookies. I had an opportunity to use those as payment for services. Somebody helped our family with a big job, and we were.
Yeah, he refused money.
He wanted monthly chocolate
installments
chips.
of cookies. Yeah, he was like, "Give me 6 months of cookies. Like every couple weeks, give me a batch of cookies."
So I'm walking down the street with my plate of cookies. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening, everyone. If you want to support the show, please check out our Patreon at patreon.com/meaningful success podcast. You can get some exclusive episodes there, and we are actively working on developing additional perks and content and things like that for that platform. And until next week.
Thanks a lot. Love you, Josiah.
It's the pause. It's the pause as though for approval. It's the thanks a lot. Waits. Love you.
This is new for me.
I mean, we're on our 11th episode, so it's got to be less new.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. I love you too, Dad. All right. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks. Bye.
The Meaningful Success Podcast is myself, Josiah Clark, and my father, Wade Clark.
That's me.
That's him. If you want to learn more, you can check out our website at meaningfulsuccesspodcast.com, where you can also submit a request to be a guest on the show in the future. Leave us your digital voicemail at speakpipe.com/MSP, or financially support the show in exchange for some cool perks at patreon.com/meaningfulsuccesspodcast. Until next week, I love you on a deep and personal level, and I see what you're wearing, and I think you look good.